If I'm not embroidering, I'm probably playing Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing New Horizons has an embroidery piece in the game called Mom's Embroidery. Since I first saw it, I knew I wanted to make it in real life. If you also want to learn how to embroider it, I'll show you how. Here are the supplies that you'll need. Firstly, some fabric. This one is just a fabric remnant that I had, so I'm not sure exactly what type of fabric it is, but it's definitely cotton, and it's pretty thick. It was too thick to be able to see through the fabric to trace the embroidery pattern, so instead I traced it onto a piece of stabilizer. The stabilizer is the kind that actually sticks to the fabric, so when I'm done stitching, I'll just wash it away. You also need some scissors, a needle, embroidery floss, a hoop, and this pattern. This pattern will be linked in the description box. It's a Google Doc that you can just print off. And as you can see, I have two different sizes here. This smaller size is made for a 4-inch hoop, and that's the one that I am going to stitch. If you'd like a slightly larger pattern, I also sized it up for a 5-inch hoop. I plan to frame it in this tiny 4-inch hoop when I'm all finished, but for the stitching, I'm going to use a 5-inch hoop, just so that there's a little bit more room around the edges. And in the Google Doc, it will also have all of the floss colors that I'll be using for this as well. I'm going to start by outlining the ducklings in color 30H22 with a single strand of thread. You can definitely see some texture of the duckling's feathers, so I'm going to use 2 strands to do the fill stitches. I'm going to stitch in this direction, kind of just following the shape of the duckling's body, and I'm going to start with my needle, or with the thread coming up over the outline stitches. I am going to cover over this eye. I'll just add a little French knot at the end for the eye. Could certainly do the French knot first if you'd prefer and just work around it. So I'm trying to stagger the stitches, doing some longer and shorter here so they don't start or end in exactly the same spot, at least for this first row. Trying to get it really close to this line, otherwise it's going to change the shape of the duck's head. Okay, so for the kind of second row, I'm going to split into the previous row here. Try to angle some of my stitches now so they don't all keep going in that direction. I want some of them to kind of curve as well. For the fluffy tail feathers, I'm going to bring it up and over the outline stitches here, or the edge stitching. For the beak and feet details, I'm going to be using color 3340, just a single strand, and since they're such tiny details, I'm not going to bother outlining. Start nearest the head. and just stitch to the point of the beak. So they just end up being kind of straight stitches or almost like sand stitch. For the feet, I'm going to actually work towards it so that I can get as close as possible, because I'm going to angle my needle underneath the body of the duck here. I'm going to try to very carefully place the French knot for the duckling's eye. So it looks like it's about the middle of the face here. Just gonna find the right spot, we'll go with that. And wrap it around twice, we'll see how that looks. Finished all 3 of the ducklings, and now I'm going to move on to filling in the mother duck's leg. I also went ahead and outlined the mother duck as well. I just used a single strand of whatever color I'll be filling her with, and I like to use stem stitch for outlines. You don't have to outline any of this if you don't want. I just find that it helps me keep everything really neat. I'm using 33/40 to fill the mother duck's leg, and I'm just going to use a single strand of thread, and I'm going to do long and short stitch. It does look like there's some webbing on the mother duck's feet, so I'm going to add that with 351, just a couple lines here. For the beak, I'm going in with 2 strands of 30H22, and I'm going to use long and short stitch again. I am going to cover the edge stitches again, so I'm starting on the outside of it and going in. For her feathers, I'm going to be using long and short stitch again. I'm going to use 2 strands of floss, but I'm going to use 2 different colors. So I have 1 strand of both colors. And they're very similar. It's going to be a very subtle difference between these 2 colors. So if you want, you can just use 2 strands of 1 color. So I'm going to start at the sort of by her beak and kind of have the stitches follow the shape of her head down. eye, I'm going to use 2 strands of black thread because I want it to be a little bit bigger than the duckling's eyes here. Wrap it around twice. For the shawl, I'm gonna go ahead and do the bottom darker pink portion here with 956. The texture looks very similar to the feathers, so I'm just gonna continue with long and short stitch here. For the top part of the shawl, I decided that I'm gonna use 2 different colors, just 1 strand of each. So I've got 956 and 957, both threaded on this needle. Just hoping that will give it a little bit more dimension. And I'm going to follow the shape of the shawl this way with my stitches, and then I might kind of switch and go that way. Start in this direction now. Okay, for the stems for the flower, I'm going to use 2 strands of 563, and I'm going to use stem stitch. Use whatever stitch you like for the vines or the stems. Moving on to the center of the flowers, I'm going to use this yellow 745 in just a single strand, and I'm going to be doing a satin stitch. I've outlined the flower petals, and now I'm going to fill them in with satin stitch. I'm using color 210, and I'm using 2 strands. Here's the finished piece. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this and have a great day.